พรหมาจโลกาทีปทีสหัมปทีกาตัญเฉลียนาทีวรังอายาจทาสันติตสันตาปาราชาคาชาติกาเทเสตุธัมมังอนุกรรมปิมังปัจฉัง
นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะพุทธังธัมมังสังฆังนะมัสสามิ So, good evening to everyone out in the Zoom platform, or good morning or good afternoon, whatever time zone you're in. So, we've been together now for a full 24 hours of practice. And so, how goes it? If your meditation makes you peaceful, then accept it. If your meditation doesn't make you peaceful, then accept it. Shema? So there were a couple of questions which are kind of pertinent, and it'd be good to build a Dhamma talk around that. There were three questions. So one from the Zoom platform was, I find myself struggling with long meditation sessions and chanting sessions. So how do I attend a retreat? Well, I would say it's more important to try to integrate the teaching into daily life. And so if you can take whatever teachings the Buddha offers us from the various teachers who are available, or from books or texts, and things which strike your heart deeply as insights, then if you can integrate those into ordinary life, then the rest should take care of itself. And some people aren't kind of designed for long retreats, maybe, and a long retreat is very, very, very helpful. And as monks, we do a lot of meditation, but the teaching obviously has to be applicable to ordinary life, because most of our life is ordinary. The thing about a retreat, it does give you a chance to put everything else aside, think deeply about personal issues that might be coming up, get some insight on how to work with your own mind, not just technique, right? Techniques are abstracts. Your own mind is the reality. And then how to apply techniques to your own reality. And then the retreat should then inform your life quite deeply, right? If the retreat was just some attempt to just hold everything at bay and keep everything calm and control everything, you might be successful. You might be successful, but then you still have to go back and meet your mother-in-law or whatever, right? Sorry, moms, or father-in-law, or whatever. Because life is very, very real that way. Whereas the way I was taught with Luangpor Cha, he wasn't encouraging us to get any special states of mind. He was encouraging us just to be mindful with the way things are, and then contemplate the Four Noble Truths. And if we do that, sometimes we certainly get exquisite states of mind. But hopefully those are more like informing of you of what right view and right understanding is, rather than just some experience which is exotic that you never have again, or that you try to repeat. Because if you have a very exotic experience which doesn't fit into your life, well, just take LSD. It's easier. So, but if you have a deeply insightful experience, then that should make you much more available to your own life, much more compassionate, much more efficient, I should think, right? But not everyone is made for a retreat. And the teaching is, it's very profound at all kinds of levels. So there's that one. And the two questions that came from our group here, can you explain more about right effort and how to apply it into practice? And last night you talked about grounding negative thoughts in the body. Can you provide a step-by-step description of how it is done? So I could try to combine those two. So classically, right effort is the effort to sustain that which is good in body, speech, and mind, and to create the causes for goodness to increase. And on the negative, to abandon that which is unwholesome, unskillful, or bad in body, speech, and mind, abandon those factors and create the causes and conditions where they don't arise again. So it's about kusala, akusala, wholesome, unwholesome. So if you keep the precepts, that in itself is wholesome. And then if someone in the office wants to cheat on the books, you're an accountant, and they say, listen, V, you and I can make $1 million. You say, Adina Dana Viramani Sikapadang Samat. Yeah, no, I'm not going there. So you sustain the wholesome, and that prevents the unwholesome from arising. You're not going to go to jail, kind of thing. So that I think that's very apparent. But then in terms of perhaps the second part, like the body and that, right effort, first and foremost, would be making conscious any sense of lack that you feel, any sense of discomfort, mental discomfort, any sense of complaint, or any sense of dukkha, as we say. And dukkha arises in all kinds of packages, as you know, small packages, big packages, comes very powerfully. So just say, if I were complaining about the weather, which you can't imagine, but anyway, let us say I am, I wake up in the morning and I love the heat. I come from Saudi Arabia or something like that. And this is like, whoa, this is too cold. Oh, this is cold, terrible cold. That, not being conscious of that is wrong effort, let's say. Right effort would be, I'm complaining about the cold, say. There is complaining about the cold. That's right effort. And that's the first noble truth, that you have to awaken to suffering. If you don't do that, then you just complain. And we see that, don't we? We see people complain, and they don't see that actually it's their mind. It's not the weather. And if you say that to them, they'll probably complain again. So you can see someone like that is a victim. And it's actually it's annoying. Someone's always complaining, but it's also sad because they have no freedom. They have no possibility of freedom because the habit of mind has become a reality. The problem is out there, always out there. So that first noble truth is, the right effort of that is to make conscious the way things are, and specifically any mode of lack or discontent that you feel, greater or small. And so what I've been trying to offer as guided meditation is this idea: make conscious sound, right? So you take a sense base like sound, and then let that become conscious. And then you take the sense base of the body, let that become conscious. And hopefully that translates into an attitude that when dukkha does arise, you make conscious dukkha. That's what I'm hoping that kind of methodology might do, because that becomes the way you operate. You make conscious the way things are. That's why I think I use that word. I don't know how it works in Thai, But rather than like focus on or look at, I'm trying to encourage a kind of receptive attitude by using very neutral things, sound, body. So that when negative things arise, which have more kind of valence or power in them, then you've already got the sort of mindset to be able to do that. It's like this, make it conscious. So those are ways I think about right effort in terms of understanding your own mind and how things are. Now, when it comes to the other truths, when we think about Nirodha, one way you might think about it, Nirodha is desirelessness or non-desire. We say the cessation of tanha, bhava tanha, vibhava tanha, kama tanha. Another way to maybe use language to think about it, it's non-desire. Now, what does non-desire feel like? It's another way to look at it. Now, for me to contemplate that would take effort. I'd have to actually study the texts a little bit, not much, but then I'd have to make them more than just knowledge. I'd have to bring them into my own mind, into my own life, and then make them alive in the way I think. And this is what we mean by contemplation in English, or we said pijarana, yeah? We agreed on that. Like you could study the Four Noble Truths, and you probably did in high school, I suppose, I don't know, and you can get an A. You got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, you get an A, but you might not have a clue about how to do it. Right? I know I've met friends in Sri Lanka, and they all got A's in their Buddhist studies. They didn't understand dukkha because it was just knowledge. And that's the danger of knowledge. You think you know something, so you can recite the list and 20 lists, right? And you get a PhD on lists, but still kick your cat when you're angry or something like that. So the art, I think, of contemplation, in that book I said, The Craft of Contemplation, I really feel it is a kind of an art or a craft, because you're taking abstract concepts, dukkha, or nirodha, and then you're trying to integrate them into your own mind so that you come to the same realization that the Buddha had, so that you can realize the peace that the Buddha had. So you start to think and see like the Buddha thought and saw. You become Buddha, but not in some kind of woo-woo way. More as in an insightful way. When you see the Dharma, you see the Buddha. When you see the Buddha, you see the Dharma, in that particular kind of way. So reflection for me is right effort. So that I do that a lot with questions for myself. I'll put that question, or I'll use words a lot in a contemplative way. So I'll say desirelessness, because that for me fits what Nirodha is about. Desirelessness. What does that feel like? And then that acts as like a mirror to me trying to become enlightened, or me trying to get rid of my pain in my knee. Oh, that's desire. That's not desirelessness. So a word like desirelessness, I have to bring into mind. Well, first of all, again, I have to study. I have to look at the teaching. I have to say, I wonder what that means. I have to contemplate. I have to think, but not just analytically. I have to really ponder this teaching. What does he mean by Nirodha? What does he mean by Nirodha? Okay, maybe it means desirelessness. Or someone tells me that. So then I throw that word up into my consciousness, desirelessness. And then that acts as a mirror to desire, right? It's like when you, if there's a mirror on that wall, I'll see what I look like. If I have a word which is significant for me, that word will mirror the what I am doing with my own mind. That's the way of contemplation. If I have the word like pumaknoi, one who is content with little, right? And then I'm thinking, I want grapes. There are no grapes. At the breakfast table. But in the morning, I've said, no, try to practice Pumak Noi. Then I'll see more clearly, well, that's not Pumak Noi, that's Pumak Ma or Pumak grapes or something. Sorry about my time. If you see what I mean. So language like that, contemplative language, awakens you to the path, to what the Buddha wanted. And that's not a belief. It's not a Buddhist belief. It's just a skillful use of thought, language, and this is what I mean by contemplation. So that is part of right effort. Then if you come to this last night, you talked about grounding negative thoughts in the body. So context is important. So let's say if you take something extreme, say, just a one-off. Sometimes life's suffering is just a one-off. So the story I've told many times is a friend in Bangkok who was a tailor up in Ubon, and when the American soldiers left, he's about my age now. When the American soldiers left the Ubon Air Base, he came down to Bangkok. He had a friend, taught him the gem business, gemstones, and he became successful. And then his gemstone guru came to him one day, said, I've got a cash flow problem. Can you lend me $1 million baht or some ridiculous amount? And he really trusted him, totally trusted him, and just gave him the money without any collateral, without any note. The guy disappeared to the States. Gone. All his money gone. And I asked him a year later, I said, are you still angry? He said, I was angry for a long time. But then I thought, well, what the heck? And maybe I just owed him from the past lifetime, Ploy Wong. So he could let go. I thought that was brilliant. And it was sincere. It wasn't, kind of Buddhist woo-woo kind of stuff. It was very, very sincere. But life isn't always that easy. So if you take another extreme, say something, do you know what PTSD is? Post-traumatic stress disorder. You have that in your language. And that's serious, isn't it? That's like, because you have like, I think they say there is one incident PTSD, and then there's serial PTSD. So someone who's been abused as a child over and over again has serial PTSD. And then say someone who maybe had a car accident, severe car accident, would have that kind of one incident PTSD. But whatever it is, that's a serious abnormality in the mental functioning of a person. And one of the ways to deal with that is to go to a therapist. And this is where Buddhist meditation might not work. So what happens from what I've read and people I've talked to, something like PTSD, is a person can do body meditation, get re-traumatized. They go back into that trauma and they're just repeating it again. So it's too much for them. It's too severe. And so what the therapists I've talked to say, well, you just let them just touch the feeling of the trauma and take them away from that and then do bodily awareness. But they're very skilled at that. I wouldn't attempt to do that. And I certainly have met lots of people with PTSD, and it's very difficult. And I try to talk them into very gently, like, are you aware of the body? Because it's so embedded in the body now, but the body produces memory. But then I've also seen people with that, they think they're meditating, but they're disassociating. And disassociation is when you just kind of get away from the present reality through a fantasy. Kids do that, right? Kids do that to escape some horror in their family. That's not meditation, that's dissociation. And they find it hard for integrating. So again, that's very complicated, right? Very, very complicated. And if in my own situation, if someone like that, say, wants to ordain, I say, no, you have to work that out first. We don't have the equipment to work that out for you. But if someone is a monastic and they have that, then I send them to a therapist. because I know that the therapist can be very helpful, and I have certain therapists in my contacts that can help for that. But it's interesting that they do say body awareness can be helpful to process the trauma. Now, so those are kind of extremes, but for the most part, what I think what we work with are not just like single incidents, but strong habits. And so we say lobha dosa moha. And the idea around that is that we just interpret life in a wrong way, and then we react in a way which causes a suffering. And it might be just a habit of anger, or a habit of fear and worry, or a habit of just being very consumptive, consuming all the time, different kinds of things. So if you make conscious that habit, that's the first step, because that's a step of honesty, that you know that the real problem is not out there, it has to be in my own mind. So let's say if someone has hurt me, and they have hurt me, it's not just my perception, and I can't forgive them, and I say it's their fault, it's their fault, it's their fault. True, but I'm still not free. Even though it may be true that they hurt me and cheated me or whatever, still I've got to figure this out. It's my mind. So that kind of situation, to actually be honest, to say, well, this is suffering. Yeah, but it's their fault. Yeah, but it's their fault. And finally say, no, suffering feels like this is right effort. Then you've got a way of practice, because then you're seeing suffering as an object rather than being the subject. And that's the real crux, I think, of right understanding, that you switch from the person mode to the witness mode. And in the person mode, you can still operate. The person cheated you, you can sue them, or you can call the police, or you can do all of that if you have to. It's not dismissing that, but you still have the suffering inside. So then you get to the witnessing mode. Now that right effort is just saying it feels like this, but that can be a big thing. So I feel like let's say the example of a person complaining all the time. They might be so habituated to complaining, they really think that the world is terrible. And you tell them it isn't. They say, you're a fool. It's a terrible world. No, it's actually quite nice. No, you don't understand. And the person's toast, as we say. So then how do I persuade someone like that, or persuade myself that this is suffering? Well, I don't know. But I think all of us are there. Right? Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. We'd be out partying somewhere or something. So I think all of us have that sensibility, and we're trying to make that sensibility more and more refined, that anytime, any discontent, it's like this. So then in the habits of mind, the habits of negativity are residual in the body. They create tensions, and thought creates tension in your head. If you really observe thought, you'll see there's a kind of squeezing of the brain. And what we want to do is we want to develop more and more refined sensitivity to the body. And this is different than aerobics or push-ups or getting in shape, right? It's not that. I mean, I think that's a good thing. Aerobics are fine. But this is more like a full body awareness of the body as a vibratory energy system, and that's different than the concept of body. My body, or my body's not healthy, whatever. So you just take something like the flu. Let's not talk about COVID. No, enough about COVID. Like a toothache, say. It's more interesting. You have a toothache, and you do everything you can to fix it, but the difference between knowing toothache and complaining of a toothache, you begin to see there's not just a toothache, there's the not wanting of the toothache, which is logical, right? But then the not wanting creates tension. Why I say I was just in a dentist chair. That's why I'm talking about dentists. So I'm in there, relax, just breathe. And so that extra tension is also when there's fear, or when there's anger, or when there's greed, or when there's loneliness. All those manifest in the body because it's one system. It's not like that the emotions are one thing and then thoughts are one thing and the body's another thing. They're very much, our life is very much embodied. And so if we can develop body awareness in a neutral situation, so we do a body meditation like I suggest, or however you want to do it, you become more attuned to the body. And then when you're getting angry, you say, oh, wow, look at that. My forehead's getting tense, or my heart is tight, or my chest is tight. You get really, really good at that. You get really good at it. And you no longer go to the self view. You go to the body. So then, let's say if I've had a habit of anger, that I just get angry very easily when things don't go my way, and now I'm being honest and reflecting, and then I say, well, next time anger comes up, I'm going to notice what my hara feels like, or next time anger comes up, I'm going to notice what my heart feels like. So that's right effort. It's the effort to make intentions, cetana, right? And trouble with a lot of these habits that we have, they just overwhelm us. You know, we find ourselves just getting angry or nervous or anxious about something. So we can kind of program our capacity to pay attention by making intentions, but not the intention to get rid of anything. If you make the intention, I will not be angry, oh, you're in trouble, because you'll be angry probably in an hour. That doesn't work, because anger is just a natural phenomenon. But if you make the intention, I'm going to notice the arising of irritation. I'm going to notice the body's tensions as irritation arises. So let's say you're at a business meeting, and it's a Zoom business meeting. And there's 6 people, and one of the people there always drives you crazy because they insult you, or they're just to talk too much, or whatever. And you know that in this Zoom meeting, you're going to get irritated at this person because it happened 20 times before. Okay, this can become a really good little monastery for you, or Dhamma practice. So you set your mind, okay, you do your homework about the business you have to do, but you say, I'm going to use this as Dharma practice rather than just hate the guy. So you go in and you already feel tension because you know Charlie's going to be there, or George, or I don't know any Thai. He's a Thai name. Anyway, you know he's going to be there. Boris. Derek. Okay, Derek. How about Derek? Derek is going to be at the meeting. And you're going to get really uptight. And now you say, okay, I'm going to notice as Derek begins to speak, or even as I go into the meeting, I see his picture, Derek. And that happens, doesn't it? You know, but now I'm going to notice it in the body. What is the perception of Derek in my body feel like? And that's incredibly useful, because now you're seeing the arising of dosa or tension or aversion, whatever it might be. It's in the body. Okay? And then, you know, you either breathe or whatever. And then it's Derek. I don't know where I got the name Derek. It's not a common name. Oh, I know why. We named one of our squirrels Derek. No, our raccoons. We have 3 raccoons, and one is Derek. That's where I got it. Anyway, so you've got a situation where it's annoying, right? But it's also pointing out your habit of annoyance. So Derek is very useful. Don't tell him that, right? But he's actually very useful for you to be able to practice now non-grasping of a habit. And if it's not life-threatening or like abusive, then it's a very actually good opportunity to look at now as a witness to the feeling of anger or aversion or whatever it might be, because now you know what it is, and that will make you more and more free of that habit. So Derek, he is your Ajahn, but don't tell him. And he's the one that's kind of not teaching you, but that's because it's a safe situation. And you have enough mindfulness. Where I think you learn a lot about these habits of mind is when they're repeated. If it's just a one-off, you just kind of survive or you don't kind of thing. But when they're like you're always in contact with someone at work or in the family, and they irritate you in some kind of way, or they intimidate you or make you feel self-doubt or whatever it is, you see it. Oh, I see. There it is. And you can really practice with it. That's why monasteries are kind of good that way. You've got 10 men in the monastery. You're going to hate one of them because your hatred has to go somewhere, right? It can't go to, so you pretty much that it's not really them. It's your own mind. And then you can watch day by day as this takes place. This takes right effort, right? This takes right effort. The effort to make this a practice, the effort to feel your body, the trust, I would say the trust in feeling the body's tensions is the liberation of the habit. That takes a lot too, because oftentimes we don't trust in that. We trust more in analysis. And then we analyze ourselves. Why am I so angry? And I shouldn't be angry. Yeah, but they deserve it. And they never liked Derek anyway. And and then we think, but that doesn't really resolve. And so the thinking is a symptom of a habit, but then the body is the place to liberate it. It really is, because with the body, you're feeling the vipaka kamma of the habit of mind, but you're not adding to it. There's no attachment. So, with the body awareness, you can't make any attachments. With thought, you are all the time. So you begin to see how you can now work through some of these more ingrained things. And I don't know where they come from. I just call it vipaka kamma. I don't think about past lives. It's just somehow, my fears and anger, somehow that's just as a kid, I learned to be a certain kind of a person. Now it comes out. I don't really need to know where it came from. Then, as you have confidence in that, then more and more you say, bring it on, right? Let's have it. If I feel anger, great, okay. As long as it's safe, Okay, this is, I know it's a cliche, this is good for practice, but it is true, So one of the kind of language I would often use, I would say like, how would Luangpor Cha react here? And he wouldn't react like I'm reacting right now, that's for sure. Or if I can't do it now, when am I going to do it? If I can't be free here, where can I be free? I put those kinds of challenges to my own mind rather than think, if I wasn't here, I could be really happy. If I wasn't in this situation, if these people weren't here, then I'd be really happy. That's a cop-out. And that doesn't work because it's really about my own mind. That famous story that many of us have told, and I've told it here many times, but we're in London with Luangpor Cha. We're in the Hampstead Vihara in the meditation room. And the meditation room it's an Edwardian room, and the windows are very, very tall, open to the street. The street is very, very noisy, Haverstock Hill. There's a pub across the way. There's buses and drunks outside. And it's really noisy, and we're meditating. And there's rock music blaring and honk, honk, and people yelling, and we're meditating, and Luangpor Cha's there. And then at the end of the meditation, Luangpor Cha says, you think that noise is bothering you, stop going out there and bothering that noise. And that was so profound, because I was sitting there and thinking, oh gosh, Luangpor Chah's here, there's so much noise. I feel so bad about the noise. And, oh, gosh, I'm so embarrassed. Luangpor Chah's here, and this is noisier than Bangkok or whatever. And then Luangpor Chah says, stop bothering the noise. It's really true. I was bothering the noise. And in a way that is kind of a brilliant model about how we like judge things. We look at someone and they're walking a certain way and we just get judgmental about it, or they slurp their soup, or they do whatever, and our mind judges them, and stop bothering them, kind of thing. Now, the practice of reflection does require compassion. It's not a judgment of what you feel. So to judge myself, like if I'm feeling angry at someone, and to judge myself and say I shouldn't feel anger, that's not contemplation, that's more aversion. So that's why I think awareness is love. Not love in a romantic sense, because it's not smarmy in that way, but there's a kind of acceptance. Maybe love is too strong a word, but metta and for me, metta and awareness go together, because it's only when I kind of truly can open to the fears that I have and the negative, what we call the dark side of my own mind, when I let it into consciousness, will I be free of it? And to me, that seems like love. I know that's an over-the-top word, but maybe a strong word is necessary. Do you love your kilesa? Oh, I love my kilesa. I mean, I know it's, but can I accept them into my mind, or do I just judge them? So most of us, I think people that come to this kind of tradition have a strong self-critical mind. I don't think arrogant people come to this. Because like sociopaths don't come to this situation because they don't think there's a problem. They're just right. Arrogant people, they just think they're right. Yeah. But people that come to this have a usually quite a strong critical faculty, and they can be self-critical, which is, there's some goodness in that. You want to be free of anger. You don't want to just blame your anger. You want to be free, but you have to use the self-criticism and not let it go into dosa. Let it be one that uses the Four Noble Truths to understand suffering, liberate the mind from suffering, as opposed to just criticizing yourself. So the idea that I should have metta is not metta, it's dosa. You get it? Like when I'm sitting here and feeling judgmental about you or something like that, in my mind, oh, you're so judgmental, Viradhammo. You should have metta. That's dosa. That's a negation of what I'm feeling. And yet it's covered over with nice Buddhist, may they be well, may they be well. I hate them. And that happens a lot because we're so idealistic. But if you say, I hate everyone, it feels like this. Okay, now that's actually love. If I follow it, it's not. I hate everyone, I hate everyone. And that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you make it conscious, you let it come up into consciousness, and then you can say, oh, hatred feels this way. And then awareness has this broadness that accepts all things and rejects none. That's a good way to look at it. Accepts all things, rejects none. Sila, no. Sila is, no, you don't punch that person. No, you don't swear at them. No, you don't steal their iPhone. No, you don't do that. So Sila is the boundaries. But in terms of what your mind experiences, you don't know. It's all natural. Hatred is natural. Love is natural, right? So if we make like Luangpor Viradhammo likes to say, it all belongs. It's like this and it all belongs. That's not condoning. The word condoning? Approving. It's not approving of wrong things. It's just knowing negative things come up. It's natural. And then you start to have some real freedom around the negativity. It's not a threat. It's not who you are. It's not your real home. Your real home is awareness. And then they start to really cease in the mind. Really cease in the mind. So I think that, so let me see. So grounding negative thoughts in the body. so if I can accept, so I have to use my own example, mostly around fear. I mean, I've got I had my healthy share of dosa and lobha and so on, but I had a really good proportion of moha around fear. And so because that was the dominant kilesa in consciousness, I realized I have to study fear. I have to really study it and understand it in all its nuances. And so it became a study of the physicality of fear. And fear is actually quite easy to notice, right? Because it's in your stomach and in your heart. And then I'd noticed, because I was investigating the physicality of fear, that made me more aware of the physicality of love, of compassion in the heart. And I saw, well, actually, fear and love are in the same space. They're in the heart chakra and in here. So that if I can develop sensitivity in a loving way when I'm not fearful, that will make me more aware here. And then when fear comes up, I'll notice the contraction. So it became an interesting exercise in both love and fear. That was very, very interesting. So whenever I could, I would I still do that. I have a little shrine to my mom, and I light a candle all the time, and I look at her picture and I go right here. I just do that a lot. I do that when I wake up. What's the first feeling in the heart chakra? I do that. I stimulate that area a lot. When I feel gratitude, I go here. So fear doesn't come up very much, hardly at all. But if it comes up, I just know it. Oh yeah, there you are. I haven't seen you for a whole week. How are you? Not a problem. 30, 40 years ago, it was a problem. It was very, 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 very contracted. So then I would say to this person who asked this question, what are the dominant themes of self in your mind? What is the self-thinking? What's the dominant theme? Is it self-doubt? Is it fantasy? Is it analysis? How does it work? What's the theme? What's the mood of the mind? And then, because usually there's just two or three we live with, right? The manifestations of anger can be hundreds in a day. I hope not. Can be many, but actually anger is just one thing. The manifestations of anxiety can be many, 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 but anxiety is the one thing. So if you can kind of melt it down to its essence and then see, where does self-view come up the most in my mind? And then begin to say, okay, I'm going to investigate that feeling that comes with a self-view. So it might be like one of the very difficult things is self-doubt and doubt itself, because doubt doesn't have the energy of fear. Your doubt is a very amorphous kind of gray moha characteristic. It doesn't have much bodily energy. So it can fool people for days or weeks or months. And it's just thought, blah, 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 blah. You're no good. You're not good. You're terrible. Or I can't do this. Or oh, they're better than me. Or what am I going to do? It's like a ghost. It's like a pea, that's kind of in your mind. And it can be very painful. Doubt can be very painful, can really, really cripple people, because it seems so real. It seems so real. And that's where the observation of thought is important. And the space between thoughts. So if there's a lot of self-doubt coming up, I suffer from that a little bit, but it was more like intense for me. But the monks I've met who have a lot of self-doubt, boy, they get crippled. It's a really, really hard one. Can I be a monk? Do I have first jhana? Am I a sotapatti? That kind of stuff. Don't worry about it. Just have your breakfast. But no, they worry. So they're very important to be able to see the end of thought, to see the space between thoughts. And so Luangpor Sumedho's suggestion is then think a doubt deliberately. I don't know what I'm doing. And then stop. And there's the silence. Am I meditating correctly? So you put in before the thought, there's silence. After the thought, what is he talking about? before the thought, after the thought. So you start to see the space around thoughts. Like sometimes we have monks who like for years will doubt, should I be a monk? Should I not be a monk? Should I be a monk? Should I not? They just torture themselves. They can't get out of the doubt. And we don't tell them, be a monk, don't be a monk. We say, you have to decide yourself. And it's kind of sad to see. They think the problem is the choice of being a monk or not, but the problem is the doubt. It doesn't really matter whether they're a monk or not. It's the doubt. But they keep thinking it's external. So when you think it's external, then you can't be free. So if you can awaken to doubt, feels this way. Luangpor Viradhammo, that was his big problem, was doubt. And so he just filled his mind with Bhutto, 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 Bhutto. He just filled it with another kind of a thought, Bhutto, 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 Bhutto. In any case, I think the important thing is that you monitor your own inner world, look to see where self-view is the strongest and what kind of moods. Begin to make intentions to notice those moods and not let them run into thought, and then try to contemplate the bodily feelings of those moods before they run into thought, and then get really, really good at knowing that mood. And there's only 3 or 4, really. There's not that many. And then you know it, and then you're free. And then the mind gets liberated from that. Much of Buddhism is so much around body awareness. I mean, it is so useful. I think the most extreme form just of confusion for me happened when I think you heard this story, but I was teaching a retreat in Toronto, and I was staying in a hotel, I think. And someone phoned me to say my mother and brother were in a train accident. Their car got hit by a train, and no other information. And I couldn't contact them. My mind went crazy. It just went crazy. It was really, and I didn't know what to do. So I just walked back and forth, and I just breathed. I just hyperventilated. And it was kind of looking back, it was interesting. I had no choice. This is the only family I have. I don't have, and very close to them, and no news, right? Are they crushed? What's happened to them? And I took a plane out, and then I saw them in hospital. Mom had a broken shoulder. Brother was okay. He was going across a railway crossing in the city. He'd been up all night, and he just didn't notice the bing, 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 bing. And the train was going very slowly, but it shoved him down the track. But my mind went crazy. But still, I had enough awareness to do deep breathing. I couldn't stop it. It was bigger than me, and then I think I walked for like 2-3 hours, deep breathing, and then my mind settled down. That's the most extreme. Anyway, I'm talking too much here. So I think we could finish there. Yeah.
Han tabayang Dhamma kataya satu karang tatamase satu 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 anumotami.
Let's finish with the verses of sharing and aspiration. Page 5. Through the goodness. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, may my spiritual teachers and guides of great virtue, my mother, my father, and my relatives, the sun and the moon, and all virtuous leaders of the world, may the highest gods and evil forces, celestial beings, guardian spirits of the earth, and the Lord of death,
May those who are friendly, indifferent, or hostile, may all beings receive the blessings of my life. May they soon attain the threefold bliss and realize the deathless through the goodness that arises from my practice. And through this act of sharing, may all desires and attachments quickly cease, and all harmful states of mind, until I realize Nibbana in every kind of birth. May I have an upright mind with mindfulness and wisdom, austerity and vigor. May the forces of delusion not take hold, nor weaken my resolve. The Buddha is my excellent refuge. Unsurpassed is the protection of the Dhamma. The solitary Buddha is my noble guide. The Sangha is my supreme support. Through the supreme power of all these, may darkness and delusion be dispelled. Closing point.
Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhaṃ Bhagavaṃ Abhivādemi Sawakkato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammaṃ Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅkhaṃ Namami. First bow. Second bow. Third bow.
Everyone in Zoom land.